Able. Cool. Yeah. So just as y'all know, the meeting is being recorded at this point. That way we can share this information with everybody else. Um, my name is Patrick, and some of you I know, and some of you we are just meeting now. What I'll do is kind of like run us through some real basic like Zoom stuff. That way everybody can kind of be on the same page. And um, yeah, then I'll let you know a little bit more about what we're trying to do today. So can everyone see what I'm sharing there? Just a Zoom housekeeping deal. So if you don't mind, can you rename yourself by clicking on the right of your Zoom square and put in there your name, your pronouns that you prefer, and the organization that you represent. If possible, would you mind remaining muted while not speaking, especially if there's lots of noise around? If you have any questions specific, like while someone's speaking, you can just throw them in the chat box and we'll have a time later to like not only have a Q&A, but hopefully sort of like a collaborative and more like round table oriented discussion. If you're having any technical issues with like sound or you're not seeing something, you can send a direct message to Rachel in the chat and she'll be able to sort of sort you out as well. Just as another sort of thing, the whole session is being recorded, like I mentioned, but also being translated too. Evie is here to provide any real-time interpretation services, but also is going to provide like an audio transcript of all of this that will be in Spanish to increase our accessibility. If you get a signal from Evie to slow down, just so that she can do that. Evie, is there like a signal that you want to use just to kind of like that one? Okay, cool. That's super helpful. Yeah, and of course, like the whole idea here, your perspective and ideas are welcome here. Feel free to contribute and make space to allow others to do so. That's a thing that's important to me, at least in this capacity, for us all to learn from each other, figure out how we can collaboratively provide better access from farms to schools. So I'm going to stop sharing this for the time being, just kind of let you know what I'd sort of planned for this as well. I'm going to give a little.
Patrick, could you go over how folks can access Spanish interpretation if they need it,
Oh
and the
yeah,
live
sorry,
transcript too?
by far. Let me throw this back on then and share that screen. Yeah, if you need to access the Spanish interpretation, there's a tab down at the very bottom of the Zoom screen. You can select that and change it from off to Spanish. Similarly, if you need live captioning, you can that's accessible by clicking the live transcript button and then enabling it accordingly. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that, Rachel. So I guess first, what I'd like to do is give everybody the opportunity to introduce themselves. Basically, share for a minute what brings you to this discussion and in what capacity, whether you operate in this network as a producer, farmer, do procurement or distribution in any way, and also like what you hope to get from this meeting. So we'll start off with that and then move into a couple sort of very brief presentations from Jenny, who is the Willamette Farm and Food Coalition Vice President, just to kind of give a better idea of what it is that the organization does and how it operates in this region. And then Melina will sort of give an overview of the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network and the regional hubs and how that network supports the work that we're trying to do here in Lane County, and also how like grant funds are allocated and how to access those funds for people who are either producers or are working in the schools. I'll just take a few minutes after that to discuss the sort of Harvest for Schools portal, which is this sort of directory that's been developed to allow for uh, school nutrition staff and farmers to connect. And then I've got like a whole series of like discussion questions that I'd like to ask people, regarding uh, specific incorporation of products into schools, or like what you can imagine growing if you're a farmer, or just kind of like get some conversation going, to sort of figure out how we can all do this more efficiently and more effectively. So that makes sense to everyone. I'll just go ahead and get started. My name is Patrick Newsom. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the farm to school procurement hub contractor here with the Willamette Farm and Food Coalition, which is the organization that sort of employs me in that capacity. This is a really new role for me. I've just started within like the last like 6 weeks or so. So one of the things that I'm here to do is like learn a lot from all of you who have been involved in sort of food systems in various capacities, so that I can better, you know, facilitate facilitate those connections. Um, what I'll do is maybe just if we pass it around the room, everyone can choose someone else who hasn't spoken. And if you'd share, yeah, like I said, your name, your pronouns, your organization, and maybe what brings you to this conversation, or what interest you have um, in farm to school procurement and work. So I'll pass it over to Abby because I don't know you, and it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, my name's Abby. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the manager out here at Moonlight Ranch. We mostly do animal agriculture. At LCFM, we sell eggs off of the farm. We have a herd share and various types of meat sales. So I said earlier, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I got the little survey link from LCFM, and I would love to learn more about the program and how we can participate if that's possible. Melina?
Hi, everyone. I'm Melina Barker. I'm the director of the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. And I'm going to talk a whole bunch later about the work of the organization, but I'm really excited to be here and meet you and share with you how Patrick and I are here to support you. And I will pass it to Shelley.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shelly. I'm here in my capacity as a producer at Moondog's Farm. We're located in Marcola, and we aren't growing a whole lot of vegetables this year, but we do specialize in dry farm tomatoes. And we mostly do a lot of retail through Lane County Bounty and the farmers market. So wholesale isn't something that we have leaned on heavily in the past. We have a couple of consistent restaurants that we supply to, but interested to see what the schools need and if there's any way we can provide probably tomatoes. That's what we have the most of this year. But anyway, glad to chat with everybody and gonna throw it over to Jenny.
Hey everybody, I'm Jenny Thames and I use she, her pronouns. And like Patrick said, I'm on the board of directors for WFFC, but I am also a producer myself. I own and operate Fair Valley Farm. We're in West Eugene and we raise pastured livestock, chicken, pork, beef, lamb, and eggs. And so we market direct to consumer mostly through CSA and farmers market and on-farm sales, with a little bit to restaurants, but we haven't done much wholesaling. But so here with WFFC, but also interested to hear as a producer, ways that maybe our farm could help provide to local schools. And I will throw it over to Nadia.
Hi, I'm Nadia Kellum. I'm the Food Corps service member with the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. I just help support projects with the network, and I love hearing about what procurement gatherings look like across the state. So I'm just happy to be here and hear about what y'all are up to. And thanks for having me. And I'll pass it to Tasha.
Hi, I'm Tasha. I'm with Humblebee Honey. I'm kind of like their office manager. We are excited to see what we can do in providing some product to the schools. The suggestion from the owner, one of the owner's daughters, was biscuits and honey for all the kids. So we are excited to learn more and yeah, just see how we can help. I forgot if there's any other questions. And I cannot see any other names, so I'm on my phone, sorry.
It's all good. Maybe Karen?
Hi, my name's Karen Benson, and I'm a farmer out in Dorena. And a few years ago, I did some farm to school sales and did a little cooking at Dorena School, and it was super fun. And I lease land at Ruby and Amber's farm, and we've hosted a lot of farm to school field trips out there that have also been super fun. So I'm just looking to continue to stay connected to our local schools, specifically the South Lane schools, and more specifically Dorena, because the farm is like a mile from the school, and that's where my kids go to school. And that's about it. Let me see who's next here. Patrick, are you able to see?
Yeah, I can see it. So far, there's like someone down in the corner with a phone number, 541-221-1814. Who are you? If you can hear.
You might have to press *6 to unmute yourself if you're on the phone.
You're
We can-
muted.
Yeah, we see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
great.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Having a little technical difficulty here. So this is Ted Purdy from the Food Plain County Youth Farm, and I'm the lead farmer at our site in Springfield on Springfield School District property. He, him pronouns, and I'm here to hear where the needs are. We grow a lot of vegetables at our site and have for many years, and we have certainly sold to schools, mainly Springfield. Somewhat over the years, there's been a bit of a gap in time since we've done that, and we do sell on occasion to the village school where my children go, and they're a great provider of purchases to local farms in the Eugene area, and just want to hear how we can plug in more to that system. We've always strived to get more food into the schools, but there's been many hang-ups for various reasons, and want to learn more.
Cool. Thanks, Ted. I'll pass it over to Annette. We're just sort of introducing ourselves, sort of letting people know like what it is that you do and sort of what interest you have in farm to school, and what just kind of a brief introduction before we kind of get going. Annette, you may have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, great.
Oh, great. Hi, everybody. Had to figure out some problems with getting on the Zoom meeting. My name is Annette from Riverbend Farm. Last year was the first year that I actually made a connection with somebody from the school district for Jay to sell a bunch of my European pears, which I had in abundance. I would like to be able to sell more product that I have if we have a good fruit year to the school district, or otherwise if that comes open. I'm near Pleasant Hill area, and we've had a huge amount of flowers in our pears this season, and now it's really cold. So we'll see what happens. But thank you, Patrick, for doing this for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Evie is here as a translator. She sort of introduced herself, but you probably can't hear her because she's in the other room. I just wanted to say thanks again for Evie being here to provide those services. And then Rachel, I think you're the last person to speak.
Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Ward, she, her pronouns. I'm the program coordinator at Willamette Farm and Food. So I'm just here to support, take notes, and help to answer any questions we all have. Patrick, you're
Awesome.
on mute.
Oh,
there you go.
great. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I saw you talking, but
Yeah. Thank you all so much for being here. It's really, really wonderful to be able to facilitate this discussion. And I'm sure we can find ways within this to support each other and to support school children getting delicious food. What I'll do now is just pass it off to Jenny to sort of introduce like the Willamette Farm and Food Coalition and sort of the general work that's being done in our area. So Jenny, take it away.
Sounds good. So yes, I'm on the board of directors for WFFC. I've actually been on the board since about 2015. So I'm one of the veterans around there right now. Right now I'm serving as VP/treasurer. But just a little bit about WFFC. Hopefully you guys are mostly familiar with our organization, but when it comes down to it, our main focus is to connect farmers and consumers through our programs. And what we're trying to do is to support a secure, sustainable, and inclusive food system. So we want people to be able to access local food, and regardless of, where they live or what their economic status is. We just want it to be more accessible and available to people. And so we kind of facilitate those connections. WFFC has been around for actually over 40 years and has evolved through all sorts of different programs over the years. But currently we have kind of 4 main programs. So we publish the locally grown guide in collaboration with Take Root magazine, which that guide has been a free printed and electronic guide that we distribute throughout the community. We've done that for over 15 years and usually distribute like 15,000 copies. And it's just it's kind of like the go-to resource for farms and CSAs in our area, as well as other food businesses that kind of, support local farms. And that's how I originally got involved with WFFC, because as a beginning farmer, it was like the #1 way I was able to get my farm name out there and connect with people. So I've always appreciated that resource. Another one of our main programs is to help facilitate double up food bucks, particularly for the smaller rural markets. Although we have this year gotten, or I guess it was last year, got funding to increase the match. So now when SNAP shoppers use their EBT dollars at farmers markets, they can get up to a $20 additional amount to spend at the farmers market. And we see that as just such a win-win for farmers, eaters, our community. It's a amazing program. So we help facilitate it at the rural markets. We also help provide that additional funding to Lane County Farmers Market. And then now we're also rolling out a farm stand program where you can actually apply to, if you take EBT at your farm store, you would be able to be part of the Double Up program there too. So that's pretty exciting. And another one of our programs, which most producers hopefully are aware of, is the annual Fill Your Pantry event, which happens each fall. And it's a one-day bulk buying event where people can stock up on all sorts of local products. And I think that one's been going on for at least 10 years, but definitely in the last several years, it's grown to be quite an event. We're exceeding like $100,000 in sales now. which is just amazing for farmers to have that going into the winter when maybe the farmers markets have slowed down significantly or CSA seasons have ended, but it still helps, get local food to people and get storage crops out there so that farmers can continue operating through the winter and have that capital to reinvest into their businesses. And then the last program that we're involved in is this program, the Farm to School Procurement Hub. So when I first joined WFFC, the Farm to School program was pretty big, and a large component of that was bringing the school to the farm, as we say, so like farm field trips. And that has since moved over to School Garden Project, which you guys may be familiar with, but there was a little bit of a break there with the procurement side, but recently we've picked that back up. And so we're now the hub for farm to school procurement, and the whole idea there being to get local food into schools and to help kind of facilitate those connections. And obviously there's some challenges and different considerations, and that's, I believe, the purpose of this meeting is to come together and kind of talk about what some of those challenges are so that we can overcome them and make connections. So anyways, that's like WFFC in a nutshell. There's been like all sorts of different programs, and I'm sure there will hopefully be many more to come, but those are kind of what we're involved in right now. So really proud to be part of that organization. And thank you for everyone to participate today.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, Jenny. I see that Ben joined us while you were presenting. So welcome, Ben. And if you just want to introduce yourself with your name, pronouns, who you work with, and like what your interest might be with farm to school stuff, we can do that. And then I'll pass it off to Melina.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Ben, he, him, and help run my brother's farm out of Cresswell. We do some field trips with local kids and yeah, just try to engage the community out here. And we haven't done a whole lot of work with the procurement side, and just, yeah, interested in growing that. And so, yeah, excited to see how y'all are thinking about this, and just like opportunities for getting more local food to local schools and such. And yeah, just happy this is happening, and congrats, Patrick, on the new position.
Cool. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate that. Great. Well, I'd love to then, move on and introduce Melina Barker, who has a little presentation for us to sort of better explain what it is that it is we're trying to do.
That's right.
It looks like we've had another person join us real fast, Jill from Eugene 4J, maybe. Hi, Jill. We're just about to launch into a little presentation from Melina. Would you mind introducing yourself, your pronouns, and what it is that you do with the 4J schools and your interest in being here?
No problem. My name is Jill Quadros. I'm with Eugene School District 4J. I actually write their menus and procure their food. So I have a huge interest in this meeting. I just apologize. I was ordering food before I could get here.
Awesome. I'm glad to see a school join us. We've got a room full of producers, so it's great that you're here. Can I try to share my screen and see if that works? Okay, let's give it a try. And if I put this in like this, is that working? Yes, okay. Great. Well, hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. It's nice to see all of you. Hope you're enjoying the moisture in all the different forms. I'm located in Southern Oregon, so it's extra nice. So I'm the director of the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. And I'm going to tell you about our work and how it connects with why you're here today. And I'm going to try to be as responsive as I can to who's in the room, and feel free to interrupt me and ask a question. And I'll stick around for the whole time to help be available to answer more questions. So let's see if I can advance my slides. The Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network is a network. We're composed of about 1,700 stakeholders across the state. And our mission is to connect and support our members of the farm to school community to create a just and equitable food and education system that provides access to healthy local school meals and food, farm, and garden education. So we are not in the direct service realm. We are in the supporting you all and building a movement to make farm to school work in your community. We try to operate our network like the web on my far right. I'm not sure if that's on your right or your left as you're seeing my screen, but some networks are more like hub and spokes and some are more dot to dot. And we really believe in the power of connection and that we have as much to share with you all as you do to share with the rest of the state. So we try to, our program areas reflect that. So we try to really do a lot of building connection, just partly why we're here today, building connection regionally and then also among regions and across the state. We do a lot to provide technical assistance, training, and resources. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. We do some work to measure the impact that farm to school is having in the state. I'm not going to talk that much about that today, but if you're interested, you can check out our website. We have an Oregon Farm to School Counts section of our website that shows you some metrics that we're measuring. And then we're the lead advocate organization here in Oregon, advocating for farm to school policy on a state level and a little bit on a national level, and work really hard to secure and maintain funding for the farm to school grant program here in Oregon, which I will talk about later. So one of the main ways that we support the farm to school movement and provide technical assistance and training is through our regional hubs. And you are at a Lane County Regional Hub gathering right now. Our partner in Lane County for procurement is Willamette Farm and Food Coalition, and Patrick is your coordinator. We also work with School Garden Project in Lane County, and they focus more on the farm and garden education side of support and training in your region. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure that Sarah would be glad to include you in her gatherings and trainings. But as you can see, we have regional hubs across the state, and some of our regions have many counties and some have just one. Kind of depends on who our partner organization is and what region they define as their service area and where they have the ability to serve and build relationships. So the network has contracts with all of these organizations to have regional hub coordinators. And that means that Patrick has paid time to support you. And then I support Patrick if he needs my help. So some of the ways that he supports you is through building connection and providing technical assistance and training. So we are right now at a regional gathering. This is your opportunity to meet each other, talk about challenges and solutions, learn about what the landscape is in your region. That's a regional gathering. Then we also offer the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Conference every other year. We just did that in February. It was a virtual conference this year, but sure we'll be back in person in 2024. And so that's a great opportunity to connect more on a statewide level and come to a bunch of workshops. So we talk a lot about technical assistance, and I think some people are like, technical assistance, isn't that like helping me use my computer or whatever? So in the farm to school world, at least, we define technical assistance as all of these things. So just simply having someone there who can like answer questions, walk you through things, provide that one-on-one support, help you locate resources, help you make those connections, hold your hand while you do the first local purchase or the first local sale to a school, connect you with programs that are successful that might be replicable in your district or region, and just to be really responsive to what is needed. So that's partly why we're here today, is to find out what kind of support you need. The network does have lots of resources. This is not a comprehensive list and it's a bunch of links, but I will call out a couple things. We have created a farm field trip toolkit. So if you're a producer and you're interested in starting to offer farm field trips, that's available on our website. We supported the creation of the Oregon Harvest for Schools materials, which if you haven't seen them are really great promotional materials of a lot of Oregon products that can be displayed in schools and have family newsletters and things like that. On our website, we've got a bazillion resources. We have them in different categories. So there's a resources page for producers, for educators, and for school food folks. So I encourage you to dig into that if you're interested. And then we also have listservs. We have a big listserv of all of our stakeholders. If you have a big announcement or want to hear statewide things, events, and then we have individual listservs for your area of farm to school that you're operating in. So we have one for producers and distributors, one for school nutrition services. So you can sign up for those listservs. Patrick can help connect you with that opportunity. And so I'm just going to do some sort of basic overview farm to school, and I'm going to go kind of fast because I'm guessing some of you probably know this stuff already, and you can always ask me questions or circle back if I went too fast. Farm to school, obviously, it's a national movement, and then we have our programs and movement here in Oregon. There's 3 components to farm to school generally. Education, which kind of happens more in the classroom, engagement or school gardens, which happens out in the garden or farm, and then procurement. So we're mostly talking about procurement here today, but procurement is a lot more successful if it's paired with education. So for all of you producers who are not working in schools with Jill, local procurement can be a little confusing. School food can be very confusing, and that's why Patrick and I are here. So I would say the most important thing going into it is just to know that it's very different than selling at a farmer's market or to a restaurant. It's very, very grounded and foundational to have relationships. So it's all based on having good relationships. For school food service, which Jill already knows all of this, I'm going to go really fast, but it's really helpful for producers when schools have clear requests for information. So what products they're looking for and what kind of requirements or how it needs to come. So what are the pack counts in the boxes or the day of delivery, or they have to deliver to multiple sites. And then in terms of being a local producer, it's good to really think about, where you might fit into school sales in terms of your business plan and your crop plan. So some producers are finding that they have like certain niche crops, right? That are like small apples that you can't sell as much at the farmer's market or to restaurants, but schools love them because they don't have to cut them up. They can just give them whole to kids, and kids can hold them and eat them. Also, it's important to think about like your quantity that you have available and how often you're willing to make deliveries, and just get clear about those things before you start kind of reaching out and building relationships. And then also, what can you offer that's special and different? So can you come and visit the cafeteria, or can you offer farm field trips like my brother's farm does? A lot of times producers have a lot of questions around what the legal requirements are for selling to schools. And the legal requirements are kind of pretty simple. If you have dairy, eggs, prepared food, or meat, they all need to be through the USDA or ODA licensure, like the normal licensing. Fresh fruits and veggies that are unprocessed actually have no regulations except for food service. School districts or food service management companies may have their own regulations that are not coming from the state or the federal government. So some food service management companies require that you're GAP certified, but that's not a state or federal regulation. That's something that they require as a business. So it's important to check with your district or school that you want to sell to, so you know what's required. So then in the world of school food, there's kind of 3 different buckets for making purchases, right? So you can make a small or a micro purchase that's under $10,000. You can make an intermediate purchase, which is up to 150. And then I didn't even include the over 150 for this conversation. But essentially, if you're in that small or micro purchase realm, the school or child nutrition program who's buying from you doesn't have to go out and ask for bids and take the lowest bid. They're allowed to just simply make the purchase. If you're getting over 100,000 up to 150,000, then they will have to take some bids and sell to the highest bidder. And so then, or the lowest bidder. So then it gets a little bit complicated with putting in some preference points for local, but that's totally possible. It's called geographic preference. And I'm not going to talk about it too much, but we can if you want. Forward contracts are great. Actually, some of them were piloted in your region years ago when Willamette Farm and Food had a really robust farm to school program that was actually run by Megan Kemple, who started the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. So we have a long history with Willamette Farm and Food and Farm to School. But Megan did a lot of groundwork establishing forward contracts. And of course, producers in the room know why this would be helpful, that you could plan ahead and know that you have a sale waiting at the school. And so some of those reasons might be that, schools sometimes really like frozen berries or things, but they might not be available if they wait too long. So you can like put in that order early. Same with storage crops. You want to have them ordered ahead of time so you know you'll have them when you need them. And so it really, and really there's been some other great forward contracts that have been even more flexible with producers where the school or child nutrition program will say, just grow me, 3 rows of things for my salad bar. And so the producer knows that those rows are spoken for and they can kind of plan out what sort of things might fit the needs of the school. So it can be really creative, but it can be really helpful to plan ahead together. So that was like a tiny little introduction to farm to school basics. And now I'm going to give you a tiny little introduction to the special programs that we have here in Oregon that you may or may not be familiar with. Oregon has a really robust state farm to school grant program that the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network helped to advocate for over the years. And in the last couple bienniums, it was expanded to include kind of like a suite of grants. So there's actually 5 grant programs, but I'm going to mostly talk about 3 today that apply to the folks here in the room. The first is the non-competitive procurement grant, and I think it's now called the reimbursement grant, but essentially all child nutrition programs, that means early care centers like Head Start or school districts receive these funds. They don't have to apply for them. They still have to do some paperwork to get them, but they receive extra money from the state in the form of a grant based on the number of meals that they serve. And that money can be used to buy Oregon grown or processed product. So you producers in the room, that means that when you approach a child nutrition program to sell food, they have a bucket of money that they can only spend on Oregon products that's separate from their normal food service budget. So that's really supposed to be for you. And it's good to remind people of that because you'd be surprised how much of that goes unused actually. Not necessarily in your region, but across the state. The other thing to know about that is that up to 25% of those funds can be used for things on the school end, like finding the Oregon foods, transportation to get the Oregon food, processing the Oregon food. So if they have extra labor, and it can also be used for promoting it. So they can have partnerships with you as the farmer or educators come into the classroom and promote the Oregon food. They can use 25% of that non-competitive grant for kind of those extra parts. And then the competitive reimbursement grant for procurement is same. It's only to be used for Oregon products, grown or processed. And it's only available to child nutrition programs that have used up all their first round of non-competitive funding. So they get a first amount. If they are really successful early in the biennium, they use up their money. They can apply for this competitive procurement grant, which is actually coming out tomorrow. So for any of you who have been anxiously awaiting the competitive grant, you'll be able to apply starting tomorrow. And this grant has multiple rounds. So it's like every few months you can apply again if you use up all your money. And it's really meant for like innovative, cutting edge, wonderful, farm to school purchasing programs that are like gonna kind of set the next level for farm to school, set the next bar. So we want people to be, really engaging with super local producers, some smaller producers that you haven't bought from before, minority owned and women owned businesses, businesses who are using sustainable, climate friendly practices, fair labor practices. So there's a way on the application that you can get preference points for all of these things. You can get like a smaller competitive award without doing those things. But if you want to get a bigger award, you're going to be looking for new producers that you haven't bought from before, smaller producers, minority owned producers, or producers that are sustainable and can show that some way, like they're certified organic, or there's a bunch of certifications on there. So that's the competitive procurement grant. You can get the child nutrition programs can get this grant multiple times. So if your initial award was $20,000 and you spent that, you can apply for a competitive grant and you can get another 15,000, and then you use that up. You can apply again in a few months and get another 15,000. So it can really add up quickly for a lot of money for local food and communities. And then the equipment and infrastructure grant is also coming out really soon, probably in the next couple of weeks. And this is the only grant of the sort of suite of grants that's run by the Oregon Department of Agriculture and not the Oregon Department of Education. And this is a grant for producers or processors who need equipment or infrastructure in order to meet the demands of the school marketplace. So essentially you can get some money to buy. Some examples that people got last time were like high tunnels for season extension so that you can grow more during the school year, or refrigerated walk-in cooler, or refrigerated truck, or an implement on your tractor that will help you be more efficient and expand how much you're growing. So lots of different opportunities there. A tamale maker machine to mix up the tamale mix for a local tamale maker. So growers as well as processors have benefited from this grant, and it's a grant that we're hoping to advocate to expand funding for, because right now it's a relatively small amount of money. I think there's $200,000 available. We requested that we requested $1 million from the legislature. They gave us 200,000. So we're working on building the case for this grant program, but it's really worth taking a look at if you need. I think the max is going to be like $60,000. So you can ask for up to $60,000 for equipment or infrastructure. And you have to have a plan for how you're going to sell to a child nutrition program. So that's the equipment and infrastructure grant. There's also an education grant that the only reason I mention that is because if you're interested in offering farm field trips, you can actually apply for the education grant as a producer, and that one, and we don't know when that one's going to come out, probably later in May. So you have that opportunity too. So that's for any direct education with kids, youth. And I should just say that the farm to school grant funding operates on a biennium. And we're almost in the middle of the biennium right now. So it's 2 school years, and this last school year is coming to a close. We have all of next school year still to for those child nutrition program funds to be used on local products. The idea is that more of the funding gets implemented earlier in the biennium, but right now we're still sort of like anticipating some of those grants coming out. And that's about it. I guess the one piece that I just should have mentioned earlier is that we're a firm believer at the Farm to School Network that there is a producer for every child nutrition program and child nutrition program for every producer. So if you don't feel like you have enough product for Eugene 4J, perhaps there's an early care center or charter school in your area that you have just the right amount. Or perhaps they want to feature you once at a special event at a larger school district. So Farm to School is not a cookie cutter, one size fits all sort of program. It's a really adaptive, flexible program that is still sort of in the making, right? So we're looking to you all to be on the cutting edge in terms of finding like the way that your your farm business fits with your local childcare or school district. So I don't think anyone should ever think, oh, I'm not necessarily a good fit, because there might be a spot for you. And many farms, I think, find that not only can it work for your business model, but it can be a really great marketing strategy in the community for you to get word out about your business. So parents hear about it, kids are talking about it, and that can have its own benefits as well. Does anybody have any questions about the farm to school whirlwind?
Just wondering if you'll have those links for us to get in and research, because some of the grant issues, that excites me, so I can do more with the information that you can provide us.
Yeah, the best thing to do is to make sure that you're on the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network's listserv, and I can put the link to sign up for that in the chat in a minute, because I'll send out announcements as soon as all the grants are released. And I'll also go ahead and put in the chat the link to the main page for the Oregon Department of Ed grant programs and Oregon Department of Ag, but neither one of those. So I have insider knowledge. So the announcements haven't actually come out for the competitive procurement grant or the equipment and infrastructure grant. I just happen to know that they're coming really soon. So if you hop on our listserv, then you'll make sure to see the announcement when I send it out. So as soon as all the applications, the producer grant, they're translating all the applications into Spanish and Swahili right now. So that's what's taking a little bit longer, but they think next week it might be out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could also be something that Willamette Farm and Food could send out through our listserv, or Patrick could directly to our list of producers once that's released too. Melina, do you have an idea? I put it in the chat too, but do you have a rough timeline of when you think that equipment grant might come out?
I think next week.
Okay, very soon. And how quick is the turnaround before it's due?
I don't know. That'll be in the RFA, but they usually give a fair amount of time. 4 to 6 weeks is kind of standard. But I don't know exactly. I haven't seen it.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say that was an ODA grant, the grant and infrastructure one?
Yes. That's part of the farm to school grant sort of program. Like when we advocate for it to the legislature, it's all together in one grant package. But then that one program gets administered by the Oregon Department of Ag. So they're the ones who will put out the RFA and they'll evaluate the applications. Yeah, and I can send you, I can put a few things in the chat about it, like who received it last year and stuff like that if you're interested.
Yeah, it seems like a good area where Patrick could help provide support if you're interested in applying to that grant too. If you need to come up with a plan for how you're going to sell to schools, I'm sure that we could help with that.
Yeah, and they're open to accepting sort of like food hub or joint applications too. Like if there are collaborations happening in your region and you need some sort of like shared equipment or shared infrastructure, I think that would be really well received as well.
Cool. Well, are there any other questions specific for Melina in this capacity? Or if not, we can always there's time to circle back to those later, where you can get a hold of me and I'll just make sure to, even if I don't know the specifics about the grants just yet, I know just who to talk to about them. So I'm happy to be a resource for everyone here with regards to either the equipment stuff or the procurement stuff too. Either of those grants I can help with. Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Melina, also for putting the listserv link in the chat there. And I guess like maybe before we kind of open it up, I just want to very, very briefly discuss the sort of existing directory for procurement as it is the Oregon Harvest for Schools portal. So I just put a link to that in the chat so that you all can check it out and explore it, but I can also share my screen really fast, just to kind of walk through how this works, like the Oregon Harvest for Schools directory. I'd love to get anybody here who is not yet signed up for this registered. That's another thing that I can provide technical assistance with. But as you can see, there's all sorts of different things that might be available. So let's say pairs, right? So any sort of school nutrition staff member can go onto this directory, find some producers that meet that criteria. Look, there they are. And then you can select either of those and go ahead and come down and find the location, availability, have they sold to schools before, what sort of delivery or minimum notes there might be, and also contact information as well. So although this does not technically operate as like a procurement portal, like you can't do purchasing through it per se, it's basically the statewide directory for farmers and school nutrition staff to connect and begin to make those, procurement connections. In addition to this too, like we're always trying to get this a little bit more, robustly populated and dialed in with more specifics. The more specifics, the merrier, the more accessible, I believe. But also, in addition to this, I'm completely happy to help folks out, directly as well, making connections from a small farmer to say a rural school district or anything in that capacity. This is just the sort of directory as it exists right now. So I just wanted to share that with you. And yeah, if anybody is not signed up on that already, please reach out, or I'll reach out to you and we'll figure out how to go through that process together. Yeah, that's sort of like the presentation part of this meeting, which is great. Appreciate Jenny and Melina for all the information. Evie, who's been providing, or here to do live translation, although it doesn't seem immediately necessary for today's imperative. Also had something that she wanted to say as well. So Evie, I'll pass it off to you, and then I have a couple questions kind of generally for the group to kind of gauge how we can start moving forward with some actionable steps. So Evie, go ahead. You may have to take yourself out of the Spanish room if possible, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I still can't hear you, Evie. If you want to type your question in the chat, maybe there's a way that that would work. Okay, cool. We're waiting for that very briefly. What we've heard so far is like some basic background and infrastructure about like how this money operates and how we can go about accessing that, whether it's grants from the schools or grants for producers, et cetera. But what I'm also really interested in is like cultivating relationships and helping people sort of set themselves up to have, regular communication with a particular school district or a particular school as it is. So I guess maybe we can address your question, Evie, when you get a chance. But I also wanted to sort of open up the conversation for farmers and school nutrition staff. I think we're like mostly farmers here today, so maybe I could ask Jill specifically, if that's all right, as someone here representing school, like what items can you imagine bringing into the kitchens or cafeterias for students, and are there like particular quantities that you can envision? I know that like the 4J school district is probably the largest stakeholder in this whole thing, but I'm just kind of curious, maybe for the other farmers present too, or other producers present, like what sort of things have worked in the past and what sort of things can you envision growing towards with regards to school procurement?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that. So I'm assuming you can hear me. In fact, I think can you continue to hear me? I think I'm alone in my cubicle, so I can do this a little differently. So the one thing that the caveat that I will say right now ahead of talking about what's coming forward is we've been really in a situation where we've had to serve our students due to COVID restraints and protocols. We've served our students in what we call a hard serve. So normally we put things out on an offering bar, and they're offered choices versus we say you're eating this. And so for the last 2.5 years, we've been saying you have to eat this. Through various issues, we have not participated at the level that we used to in Oregon Farm to School. It's just been difficult. In the last 2 weeks, we have brought our offering bars, or what you might call salad bars, back. And so oftentimes we like products that we can put in what we call that students can choose based upon how yummy that looks, or if they've had it before, if they've never tried it before, things that they can choose. So kiwi berries is something that I remember before the COVID situation was extremely popular for us, and they were really easy for us. My custodians might not have liked it when they landed on the floor and got stepped on, but it was just lovely. We will try anything, and we like things that maybe they don't see all the time. Carrots and celery sticks and orange slices they see those almost weekly, and so those get a little boring. So rainbow carrots or anything that just is a little bit outside of the norm really can excite the students when they're seeing it in that format, and they get to choose how much. They try it one day, they see it again on the bar the next day, and they take more this time. And that gets us really excited as well. So that's what we'll really do. We'll try anything at 4J. And so if someone says, hey, I want to plant a crop of this, would you try it? We probably will. Our biggest struggle would be taking it in any sort of format that would be field cut. That can be tough for us. I don't have good processing. I don't have a lot of labor. I'm struggling with labor tremendously. I think I'm still have 2 of my school kitchens closed due to labor shortages out of my 30. I think I have 29 open out of my 36 total that would be open. We're hoping by fall. We'll really try anything, and we would try small amounts. I can always feature items in particular regions of town, or I can feature small amounts to a couple of schools, and then I can rotate that around. So I know when folks think, oh, 4J is so big, but that's okay. I focus on equity, and I focus on getting something to everyone, but it doesn't have to be all at one time. And so I just kind of take on that responsibility for folks who can't maybe provide me an entire volume so everyone gets to try it. That's okay. We'll continue to work with that. Does that help? Is that the kind of thought you were?
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and maybe too, just as a follow-up, I know Melina had mentioned in her presentation too that oftentimes pairing procurement with education is a thing that can sort of like boost that, especially if it's going to be like a one-time thing or special recipe or a particular event or something like that. So I'm curious, maybe if you have any further insight in that would be helpful for folks to know.
I've done purchases of like what you were talking about. I've done large purchases of frozen berries. Sometimes I'll do it after a season when a purveyor didn't maybe move them. If they'll pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, I've got 10,000 pounds. Would you buy that? I've done that. I have storage facilities for that. And I really love those opportunities, especially if I'm getting to the end of my school year and I still have dollars left. Some of those can be really beneficial for me. And when I say that, sometimes it's not necessarily just farm to school. Sometimes I'll just spend my own money. So bear in mind, don't hesitate. And I will try things. We're always doing baking projects. So if you've got a berry that I think might work well in a muffin, you know, and I'm using Miffy's up in Portland. I'm using Red Mill. I'm using another local purveyor for muffin mixes. And so sometimes if I can pair that and we can feature Miffy's muffin with someone's berry, looks really good, sounds really good. Most of the time it tastes really good. Yeah.
That's so helpful. I think just providing like a general idea of like what it is that, you know, opportunities basically for procurement, even if it's not like a regular thing or it's not like even a particular like massive thing either. Oops.
I would say that the one thing that can be beneficial for us as well as local producers is if something's going to, like something didn't move, we picked up some pears this past year that, you know, the farmer was concerned that she was going to lose them. And she happened to say to someone in our office, hey, I've got pears, would you move them? And we did. I mean, like we cleaned her entire, was that you? Annette, was that you? Yeah, that was just like lovely. She was at Annette's farm and I grabbed them and we completely took everything she had. That's funny. And I didn't realize that was you. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. The next question I sort of had for the producers in the area is like, you know, what do you imagine that you could bring to schools generally? So for those of you who are producers here, maybe Annette sounds like a natural thing for if you wanted to mention that first, like things that you have and then pass it around. It sounds like you and Jill have worked together in the past. So I'm curious what opportunities farmers have to provide produce, and then maybe Jill, if you have any response to that with regard to like, hey, that would work, but like maybe in this specific way, that would I think be helpful information for everybody as well. So it sounds like you got some pears from Annette last year. Annette, do you want to speak to that and maybe other things that you may be able to offer?
Yeah. What was interesting is having somebody from the 4J office actually come to my farm store. You know, I'm desperate. I have so many pears and I just didn't know what to do with them. So I was really excited when she mentioned 4J school district and they were able to purchase some, which helped me. And because I hate to see food go to waste. And the experience was actually really easy once I got connected and found out about the process. So I'm excited to do it this coming year if we do have extra. I probably will have extra strawberries too. So I'm a little concerned. How do you do that? I don't put them on plastic. You know, I know there's always issues with you know, bacteria or whatever. So I don't know how strict you are with the purchasing of strawberries. That's for Jill.
I'm, like I said, I have a bit of a tough time with field washing, but at the same time, similar to what we did last time, you know, maybe calling us before they're becoming spent is always helpful so that it builds me a couple of days of processing if I need to process. But it would be one of those things where we pick up the phone, call us, we'll drive out, maybe take a look at the product, sort of strategize, okay, how can we process this and what's the timeline? Often I try to do it earlier in the week so I don't end up sitting on the product over the weekend because then I lose that. And then I just have to strategize how to actually get it onto my bars or into the bags for service for the kids. So it's just each opportunity sort of, we just have to look at it and decide, okay, where are we at in our processes? Where are we at with labor? Where are we at with all of our pieces? And if we can put it together, you saw us, we did. I think, you know, literally driving our vans out to you, finding a credit card, you know, doing all those funny things that we did that day. Like, yes. Okay, how can we pay this? How can we do, you know, and just making it happen. Yeah.
I might have extra apples too this year. So we do have an apple washer. Is that appropriate enough? Would that work for you? Or do you have to put them in a solution with, just for the kids. And I know if we can't get everything thinned by hand, we'll have smaller apples. And it sounds like I didn't realize that you would appreciate more smaller apples for the kids.
Sometimes I do appreciate smaller apples. Sometimes I don't. We often will, we do find that we get kids more interested in participating with taking the apple from the bar if it's sliced. And so if I'm packing, right now I'm going into outdoor school, and so a whole small apple would be ideal. Other points in the year when we're serving it on the salad bar, I do slice them, so I tend to like the bigger ones a little bit. Another program that people may or may not realize that I've been doing through COVID, so I'm also doing food boxes. And so sometimes I'll take 6 apples, put them in a bag and put them in my food box. And so I'm also giving food out that way. And I do that. I give a food box every Wednesday, and have been doing that for the last 3 years. So when I'm doing it like that, often the field, we can say to the families, hey, this is your opportunity to, thoroughly wash these and process these. Yeah, we've got more options than we've had for a very long time. I can't guarantee that my waivers will continue. And when I say waivers, my reimbursements from the state have been opened up a lot to allow me to do things like food boxes. Those are slated to end June 30th, I believe. And although it feels like those opportunities to feed in more creative ways are ending, there are some things out in the last 48 hours. A couple states have put forth a bill for funding to continue those. And if those continue, I do believe that we would be more apt to be able to take some of that food box type of, where I can hand someone a 5-pound bag of apples in a box of food, that then for all of us becomes easier, because we aren't necessarily washing individual apples and then cutting them and all of that processing that we do on our end. So I will keep folks posted, or it will just be in the news, if you will, if that continues. And if those restrictions stay off of us, we will be much more likely to get farm food into families' hands than maybe we have in the past.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For other folks, I know that a few of you are growing vegetables. I think Shelly, you mentioned that, and Karen as well. So I'm curious, like, what y'all might have that could be, useful not only for the 4J school district or, other schools as well.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me are the dry farmed cherry tomatoes that we grow. So that's like our largest harvest and our largest sales item every year. And so we're really building up our dry farmed crops. The cherry tomatoes sound like a really cool fit for the schools. For one thing, when you dry farm a cherry tomato, it has this like flavor that's way more concentrated. It does really well in tests. So it's like, could be fun for students to be like, oh, this is a really good cherry tomato. They also have a longer shelf life because of the lower water content. And so, it might lead to like less perishability for y'all. And then there's like the education aspect, which is like, come to the field and pick some of these or learn about how we're growing without irrigation. It's kind of a really interesting topic right now because of our droughts, and also just thinking about like kind of heritage and agriculture in the Willamette Valley. It's like dry farming is how people have been doing it for a long time before we had gasoline pumps and aluminum pipes. So I'd love to work further with the schools on cherry tomatoes. I was just kind of, my brain was going with that equipment grant. I've begun to make cherry tomato jam. Annette taught me how to make jam, and now I'm making cherry tomato jam. She's the jam queen. But I was wondering if you guys do purchase value-added products at all, because because possibly I could like get a cherry tomato December with that grant money. And then if that went back into schools, it would be a full cycle with that.
Yeah, that's probably a question for Melina, I would imagine, with regards to like how those grants would come through. But that I'm pretty sure that value-added products are definitely
Yeah.
a thing. Yeah.
They're definitely allowable, and that would be totally an allowable piece of equipment as long as you had. So part of the equipment infrastructure grant is that they'll ask you for like a letter or some sort of agreement. I don't know what it's going to look like this time around, of intent to buy. So it's not a legally binding anything, but it's just that like you've reached out to, you've established a relationship with the child nutrition program that like thinks that they want to buy it, whether they end up doing that or not. Like we're not going to hold anybody to a commitment, but the idea is that there's that. So you'd have to find out if there was interest. And then with any processed product, you'd have to make sure it fit the, like is processed in a like certified kitchen environment.
Yeah, we do have the food processing license already. So it's just a matter of equipment, but yeah, thank you. That's cool.
And I just wanted to like kind of jump into, because any of the products that we've talked about so far would be great to do this, but especially we're talking about these dry farm cherry tomatoes, such a great opportunity for like promotion and education around all the things that you mentioned. And I put it in the chat that it would be really good for a competitive procurement grant, just because it would fit the sustainability component for sure of a producer that you'd be working with. But you know, farm to school, I would say, can be most successful when you start small and you do a good job of like wrapping in promotion and education and local procurement all together. So like, even if you did, you know, like October or September, I don't know exactly when your tomatoes are, but like it was the harvest of the month that year. And Patrick can totally help you promote together with child nutrition programs and producers, and the network can amplify that on our end as well. And so I would just say some of the most successful programs, I think, started small, but did a really good job of sort of promoting and engaging the community on a broader level to get excited about it. Because then what happens is like, eventually the other school districts or other school board members or other parents are like, hey, that school's doing this neat thing. How come it's not happening at our school or our Head Start or wherever? So I would just say that if you want to get the biggest bang for your buck, to really think about the promotion part, which I think a lot of people don't have time or don't really think about. And that's really a place that Patrick can help you. And we, Oregon Department of Agriculture has allowed the network and regional hubs like Patrick to have access to some really nice like marketing materials, like make your own posters and make your own item identifiers on the salad bar, like that can feature local producers and different products. So we have a lot of tools available. So I would just say that's one place I would encourage you to reach out for help with and make that happen.
Great. Yeah, that is something that I could also like bring the Dry Farm Institute into. They already made materials for us regarding what dry farming is and all of that.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That'd be a great thing to help continue to facilitate too. I know some of that comes about because of like the salad bar, or like the opportunity for choice too. So I'm curious too, for other people who are farming vegetables, Karen and maybe Ted too on the youth farm, like what other things do you imagine having available or in surplus that could be potential items for Jill or for other, you know, smaller or rural school districts as well? I know, Karen, you'd mentioned working with the Dorina School in the past in Cottage Grove.
Yeah. So several years ago, I did some farm to school sales back when we were doing like the veggie of the month in South Lane School District. And at the time I was growing a lot of fall and winter veggies and root crops. And so that was cool because the season aligned really well with the months that they were looking for product. And like were, I think it was just a little more challenging finding products like in the dead of winter that weren't value added. So it was cool to bring in fresh root veggies and stuff. I feel like it kind of ended up, it was more like they would just try it and there wasn't a lot of continued sales, but there was a little bit of interest with our individual schools. So that was encouraging. And I think moving forward, I would be looking at those same kind of crops. And so like carrots and rutabagas and beets. And also I wanted to add that I'm kind of in a position where I have quite a bit of space and potential to grow a lot of different things. And so I'm really interested in connecting with the schools closest to me, kind of touching base with them again on what they feel like they want. Because I do grow other crops also.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to reach out and get you in connection with the schools in that area, or if you have any of those connections too, I'd be happy to kind of stimulate that conversation. Thank you. And Ted, I don't know if you're growing what vegetables you're doing at the youth farm right now. I just kind of want to talk through that a little bit, and then I know some honey producers and some other livestock producers here too. Oh, I think you just muted yourself. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so again, this is Ted at the Food Plain County Youth Farm. So a few thoughts and a few challenges to throw in the mix here too that we've experienced. So I mean, we at our farm we're unique simply because we're a part of Food Plain County. Excuse me, Food Plain County. So we sell approximately half what we produce, and the rest goes into the food bank system to get spread out to low-income families in the community. So if we sell extra product that's less, we send into the food bank. So there's always that struggle from our perspective of our operation. Yet being a part of the school district, and we've been a farm to school, field trip site for many years. So we love that connection and would like to increase that. And we're kind of a perfect farm to do that simply because kids can come to our site because we're in town, especially in Springfield. We're walking distance to Guiley Elementary, for example, and they've had a strong relationship over the years, at least pre-COVID. And so for us, a couple of the challenges has been, at least with the Springfield School District, and I know the landscape's changed a bit with some of the grants that have come through, as for us, we would have to send any produce that we wanted to get to the school district through a third party. So we had to go through Emerald Produce, who would then, send it to the school district or process it and then send it to the school district. So that creates some challenges. And then also, the price, which, at that time at least, Emerald was willing to pay essentially conventional ag prices, which are vastly different from what we all sell locally. I'm talking, 20% of what people sell at farmers market, that sort of thing. So that's not exactly going to draw great interest from farms to, unless it's a donation, purely donation situation. So, and I know that landscape's changed with some grants that have come through, but that is an issue, I think, in particular for farms that are trying to sell whatever they can to make a living. They can't take 50 cents a pound for a carrot, you know what I mean, when they can sell it for $2 or $2.50 a pound retail. So there's those issues. And then I think the timing of vegetables in schools has some challenges that we've run into. So of course, there's not much in April from local farms, and then May and June things start to pick up. But most farms that sell at markets can have high demands that time of year, so there's not a lot of extra to go around, I'd say. And then when you get into summer, the schools aren't open, and then there's not the need there typically. And then when we have our highest productivity at most vegetable farms, particularly, is that September, October window. And so that's really the best window for the most variety. And then things really start to taper in November. And tying into that, in my experience, the schools really want things. I mean, I have children, the kids want carrots and they want cherry tomatoes and they want, cucumbers, but they don't want beets and they don't want kale and they don't want Swiss chard. And then one other issue to throw out there is the processing. It sure would be wonderful to have the option to send field grown, or farm washed produce into schools, have it processed and served to kids there. And I know that's a great challenge due to staffing. I think the village school, which is the school that we sell to, which is, a bit of an outlier, certainly what they can pull off, but that's a great model to look to. They can take field grown produce and transform it into salad bar food and those sort of things. So we have a fairly large capacity to grow a fair amount of things for the school, but those are been some of the roadblocks for us, up to this point.
Yeah, for sure. Those are a couple things I've been thinking about too, with regards to pricing and distribution, et cetera. But I see that Shelley had raised her hand, so I just wanted to give her the chance to speak.
Yeah, I just was wanting to speak in a capacity of another hat that I have through Lane County Bounty about maybe some possible solutions to the third party issue, but I also didn't want to take up the floor again before producers were able to talk about the products that they wanted to bring to schools.
Yeah, I'd love to have the conversation about distribution and stuff like that, but I also would love to give people a chance. Tasha, who I know was doing honey, and then Jenny, Ben, and Abby, who are doing some livestock stuff. So maybe if we chat through that real quick, I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah, I would be curious to hear from Jill or maybe Melina, if you guys have seen much local meat in schools. The one that I think our farm could do most easily would be like ground beef or ground pork, or pork, like a ground pork sausage. And then one that I know that would also be really exciting for a farm like mine, but is probably challenging for the school, is like stock bones or doing soup, things like that. So I'm just curious if you guys have seen much success with that.
I mean, I will let Jill answer for like specifically your region, but I will say statewide, yes, lots. It's actually a really common and very popular way to do local purchasing. The products that you discussed are the popular ones, the ground beef in either patty form or just straight ground beef. And also some districts have worked with meat producers and processors to get like the right kind of like sausage or link kind of product. And then soups and stews less, but it's happening. Like more of the innovative, like I'll try it, anything. Food service directors are definitely doing like stew meats and broths and stuff like that, roasts and things like that, but less common, but definitely like kind of frontier stuff. But yeah, the ground meats, I would say overall are really popular. And there was some great innovation that happened. I think it was like in the Portland metro area where I can't remember the name of them right now, but anyway, with some turkeys, there was like a drumstick product that they were able to provide that wasn't as popular. Like the breast meat was really popular, but then they had all these drumsticks and they were like, oh, schools made these, maybe you're familiar with that, Jill, but I'll just say yes. Yes.
So speaking specifically with 4J, I am 3 years into in-house management after a 20-year relationship with a food service management company, and then a year in COVID. So really we feel like we're in year 2 of a startup. we are struggling to be able to process. We come from a 20-year relationship with a heat and serve environment. And so a lot of our equipment has been built around that concept of taking something frozen out of a box and putting it in the oven and then putting it on a student's tray. So I'm struggling to deal with raw meat in my facilities. So I'm not a very good one yet. We're working diligently to upgrade our kitchens to be able to handle just, for example, we did some local grass-fed burgers, and we didn't realize that our grease traps weren't up to snuff. So we're struggling with that, but I would say, come back to us in a bit. And we're hoping to get there. Process that we're trying to go through is production kitchen, and building a large scale production kitchen with one of our facilities that is being replaced. We're getting a new high school, and we hope to maybe use our old high school as our production facility. And so once we do that, then perhaps we would be able to deal with raw products. But right now, I'm struggling with that. So that's our situation.
Yeah, thanks for both of those perspectives. I mean, that's kind of what, I suspected, that, it's a challenge, but maybe something that there's future opportunity for as things kind of change.
Yeah, that was sort of my suspicion as well. I'd like to talk more about, future plans for that, but it sounds like maybe there's some infrastructural hurdles first. But yeah, Abby or Ben, I know both of you are working primarily with livestock. I'm just curious if you have any questions further that we can hash out here, or I also want to give Tasha an opportunity to ask about honey.
I think that about covered it for me. So.
Hi there. I love the idea of getting honey into the schools. I just don't know what it looks like or the best fit. We sell to some people that bake, and when you said muffins, I was like, oh, that would be great if that's something you're interested in, replacing the sugars with some honey. And then, we could even do some sort of honey stick if that's acceptable for the grab bar. I am open to ideas and would love to just see what we can do, how we can get the product there.
What's interesting for us is we have just, like I said, we're just now getting back into our production work, and we have taken back over all of our own sauces. So we were outsourcing our sauces, and we have just finished spring break was filled with sauces, and we absolutely were struggling with what we wanted to choose as sweeteners. So perhaps there could be a relationship in a bulk setting also. So yeah, I think that would be really interesting.
That's a great idea. I love that. We will be in touch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. That's great. Making connections. I think everybody's had a chance to sort of like speak who's a producer, but yeah, Shelley, you mentioned, putting on your distribution hat, and that's a thing that I've been thinking about a lot too, with regards to, deliveries and availability and storage and aggregation and things like that. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts in that capacity.
Yeah, sure. So just like a brief background is that my farm started an online marketplace when COVID hit in 2020. So we're currently buying wholesale from a number of farmers in the area at this point, and distributing to retail customers via delivery all over town. We're right now looking at commercial spaces for, maybe a goal of by the end of this year having a more space in a commercial location. We've got a couple of leads for that. We've also begun discussing like more regional delivery logistics with some other food hubs. on the coast and Cottage Grove, potentially even Corvallis. So we're looking at increasing our ability to move food around and looking at grant funding for some of those projects as well. So adding a wholesale sellers or resellers hat to our business is something we've considered. And, I think we would be able to be a friendlier broker potentially and just do it to make it happen. I think there's also potential if some of our regional distribution clicks into place in the next month or two, that we would be able to help educational facilities outside of Lane County or this particular area buy from local farms. So we're really just evaluating these potentials, and we're just beginning to talk to some partners about expanding our capacity. It seems like an LFPP grant is maybe within the realm of possibility as well. So it really just depends how some of the conversations that we're having right now play out over the next couple weeks or months. But there's a lot, I don't know, there's a lot going on, and I don't really know what it looks like yet. One of my questions though is how schools are doing purchasing. Mostly when we're selling wholesale, we're just publishing a weekly or biweekly wholesale list. And so are buyers and schools just waiting to see what availability is, or is it more of a predetermined arrangement and sale?
Do you want me to answer just from my perspective?
Yeah, I'd love to know about that.
Okay, so we haven't been able to predetermine. I had for example, we had a crop of blueberries that didn't make it. And so oftentimes predetermining what we expect to come on in a particular week, it actually creates a lot more work for us. So within a 2 to 3 week advance notice is probably the most realistic for these taste it type of items. When someone sees, okay, I'm going to have enough and I'm going to have this volume, we tend to then menu it and just scurry around and get it out. And I know that's not ideal. We typically rely on what we talked about, our more commercial vendors like our Emerald or organically grown for some of our standard fare on our bars. And then we use okay, this is available in 3 weeks. Okay, in 2 weeks, this one, in 4 weeks, this one. It's kind of how it ends up working with the local teams that we work with. Yeah. I mean, we would love it, but it's really hard to commit if you think about it. If I needed I had it menued for a particular week and I said, okay, your produce is coming online on this week and you needed an extra week, it makes it tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder for us to project that we're going to be able to guarantee something. So for us, 2 weeks is well, that's a lot more notice than we usually get or give, with buyers. But
yeah, I mean, we can go 2 or 3 weeks, but we can also do a week, like with our pears. We turned that around in 3 days, I think. The conversation happened and I want to say we were back out on her farm in 3 or 4 days.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just plant a seed, and I don't know if it's a good fit, but it sounds like you might have a partnership because our regional hub down in Rogue Valley, Jackson, Josephine County, one of the roles that they are serving as regional hub for their community, which is just a response to a need, is that they sort of compile weekly availability lists, both of hyper local and, available through distribution to your region. And then they send that out, and it's a 2 week time frame, right? So they send it out and then people have 2 weeks to either order directly with the producers, or I think they actually coordinate some orders, but so anyway, I don't know if that's a fit, but Patrick, you could talk to them at Rogue Valley Farm to School about how they manage that program. And it seems like there's a partnership possibly with, is it Lane County Bounty that you're? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I want to say is there's a lot of success is being had from like small, and they're not on this meeting today, but smaller early childhood centers especially have been known to like purchase 2 or 4 CSA boxes or bounty boxes or whatever, and just get these weekly so that they can have plenty to like taste with the kids and prepare in different ways. And that's been actually pretty successful in a couple different regions of the state. So it might be something that you think about. And just because Jill's not ready to get the meat that's offered here at this meeting doesn't mean I was just pulled up, Patrick has a spreadsheet that I have too, that's got all the child nutrition programs in Lane County, and it's a really long list, and they're all different sizes. And so there's definitely more buyers than are represented here at this meeting today. So that Patrick's here to help you make those connections.
Oh, it's quite a long list. It's very comprehensive. So one of the things I'll be doing in the next couple weeks is reaching out more and more to schools and childcare facilities and stuff like that, to start really trying to figure out like where I can help people plug in, with this. Yeah, just before we get too far ahead, I wanted to voice the question that Evie had, even though we can't hear her, she's in the other interpretation room, which is about the possibility of like restaurants. Your husband has a restaurant, and was interested in providing meal food items like tamales or empanadas. So is there an opportunity to connect with schools there and with farmers to like provide those ingredients? That way it would basically be like through that processing allows for like greater access. That is a thing, I'm pretty sure.
Yes. I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah. Please.
So we definitely are having a lot of success with some products that were formulated like that in Oregon. So there is a tamale producer that has a lot of success, and a umi noodle producer that we hold up a lot as champions of farm to school. And it's totally possible, and it's totally a fit for these grant programs. The one like caveat is that because we're serving to schools, there's a couple of things that schools need to be able to do. They need to know how your product credits, and Jill could probably talk about this better than I can, but they have all these requirements about how much grain and fruit and protein and everything. So they need to know how it credits, and and it needs to meet the requirements. So it has their sodium and sugar and fat, I think, requirements, right? So the best thing to do is for Patrick to connect you with Amy Gilroy, who's the farm to school manager at the Oregon Department of Agriculture. And she can help walk you through basically creating what's called a product formulation sheet, which is what the schools need to be able to be like, this tamale equals what in my crediting world of school food. So there's a little bit of a few extra steps for a processed product like that that's ready to eat than whole product that we've mostly been talking about, but also a really nice fit for schools, because some schools, like Jill is saying, are heat and serve mostly or transitioning from. So there's definitely like a need for wholesome, good local product that fits sort of that delivery model in terms of being able to, just heat and serve. But it's not like a straightforward answer, because it depends on how your product is made and what the ingredients are and everything. And maybe Jill wants to add anything.
Shelley, your products would be really easy to credit because you're basically a single ingredient item. Tamales are an interesting one in that we get a grain, we get a meat alternate, we can potentially get a dairy. There's multiple factors in a tamale. So if you are thinking about going into that business, you'll want to definitely build your standardized recipe around your crediting, because of for example, I need a 2 grain at a high school level. And if your product is a single grain, it probably isn't going to be ideal for me to serve at all levels. And then I have to consider things like, okay, well, if I can serve a single grain to an elementary school student, but I'd have to bring in a different product for my high school students. And is that is that really gonna work? And there's lots of factors. So single ingredient items are really easy. Meat alone is really easy to credit. Fruits and vegetables are really easy to credit. It's the grains that can get tough, and then the multi crediting products. Don't let it sway you if you're interested in something. Not at all. It's doable. There is a learning curve there, and oftentimes folks, I've seen new businesses actually just secure a registered dietitian on a little contract to have them credit it on behalf. There's a lot of local registered dietitians that can do that work, and we'll kind of say back to you, okay, you need to add half a cup to every serving of this item in order to make it really palatable for a school district. Yeah, and I don't know a lot about Food Innovation Center, but there are folks out there that do that work.
Cool. I hope that was helpful, Evie, and everybody. Honestly, we got about like 15 minutes left, sort of allocated for this conversation. I've got a couple items that just take about 5 minutes or so to wrap everything up. But I just wanted to give anyone else the opportunity to ask questions or make a comment before I sort of like walk us out of this conversation and into the rest of the afternoon. All right.
Well,
go ahead, Shelley. Yeah.
I did just want to say that if we do chef discounts on Lane County Bounty, so if anyone did, like smaller schools wanted to purchase small amounts of things and just like see what's on the list and shop, that's something that we could communicate with them about.
Cool. That's on the website too, I believe, right? Yeah, that. Cool.
So I guess I did one of those thinking while people were talking. And Patrick, I was trying to email you and I can't find you in my email. But one of the things that I just heard, and I don't know if we could develop this concept, but a CSA delivery to schools, like you commit to Chavez Elementary School that you're going to deliver a CSA once a week, and it's able to come out of the box, and teams could process it in whatever way they see fit and get it out to the students. I wonder if we could develop something like that. I mean, I'd be very busy behind the scenes because I have to identify everything that I'm putting on my menu or that I'm offering students. But I mean, those CSA boxes could be sent to schools, right? Why not? If anybody is really wanting to expand their CSA program, let's say we would choose 100 or 200 pounds a week or a month, however often that they come out, and we feature that farm for that school, and then we share that with a lot of different farms, and maybe I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, that might be really fun.
There's a project that's getting piloted this summer in Klamath County with a food hub, kind of similar maybe to Lane County Bounty, and a summer meal provider. And essentially they're just contracting for the whole summer to get weekly deliveries of in-season produce, like enough to serve however many students. They've outlined a whole sort of contract or agreement, and they're going to give them kind of their whole Department of Ed non-competitive amount of money. And then the food hub will just figure out how much that buys them every week for the whole summer. So that it's a similar kind of idea, I think, that you're having of like these weekly deliveries.
Yeah.
You can see how that goes. And that also I put in the chat, but another plug for summer meals, because one of the way the program was expanded in 2019 was to include summer meal service. So now all those summer meals providers, which are school districts as an early care, but also like other sponsors like the YMCA or Boys and Girls Club or whatever, they all have allocations now too to buy local product. And that's such a great time to be doing that.
Yeah, we do offer a subscription program. We call it a bounty box. And so we're aggregating from multiple producers. We also have an omnivores one. And so we end up putting Jenny's bacon in it and everything like that. So we do offer that service. It's, there's a lot of CSAs in town though. So there's a lot of opportunity in that realm, I'd say.
Yeah, I like that idea, especially with like I think Melina brought up the smaller after school programs or childcare programs, maybe getting 3 or 4 of those a week or something like that, just as a regular sort of purchase. Yeah, I guess the couple things that I wanted to say, if that's probably the right time for that, I just mostly like thank you all for being here and taking a couple hours out of your day. This is like really, really helpful information for me. I'm like new to this role and really eager to, expand what we're doing here in the area, and just hearing from, the breadth and diversity of producers and aggregators and, school nutrition folks, has been like immensely helpful for me doing my job. And I, would like to translate that around to help you all as well. This is certainly a role about building relationships. And I'm glad, Jill, that you shared your email there, and, I'll make sure everybody gets a link to the recording of this as well, and we can stay connected. But, a lot of this here is also for like helping support small farmers by like finding regular purchasing opportunities or regular ways to, access grant money and, create like a stronger food system in our area. So that's my goal here, and I want to do everything that I can to help you all out. I guess the things that we have right now, at least infrastructurally, are like the school to harvest portal that I showed you, and I can share again with regards to like getting people signed up there. That way, I think it's just a good platform for folks to make a connection somewhat more passively, to be able to be like, oh, these are schools that, or for schools to be like, these are farms, or these are products that are available to me. But I'm also, like I said, very helpful to be like an active facilitator in any of these capacities as well. So like there's no, risk or any commitment or anything signing up for the portal, and, schools and sites can use them regardless of whether or not they have state funding or not. So it's really not like anything that binds you to purchasing through that, or, like Annette's, deal with the school last year happened completely outside of that portal. And so I'm happy to help facilitate those connections and relationships as well. That's sort of, why I'm here, just to kind of help us all connect. And I think this conversation today was a really, really great start with that. Yeah, I suppose the other thing too, I know that we were offering sort of a stipend for those producers who are here. So if you just reach out to me with an invoice, we'll sort you out in that capacity, or any questions, just send my email, which is f2s@farmandfood.org. So yeah, I guess that's sort of the program for today. Any further comments, or I'll go see if it's raining still.
I just wanted to say a huge thanks to Patrick for organizing this so early. We just really threw you in there, like within a couple of days of starting. We're like, how about you plan a gathering? And you've done a wonderful job of it. So appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thank you, Jenny, for speaking on behalf of the Willamette Farm and Food Coalition, and Melina for your wealth of knowledge and resources coming from the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. And of course, Evie as well. Thank you for being down to translate this for other Spanish speaking folks, later on, so they can access it too. And of course, like anybody, please reach out to me with any questions, comments, connections, wild, zany ideas. I'm happy to follow up with those, and also, just continue this work.
I want to say thank you to Patrick. And are you coming to work tomorrow?
Probably.
I don't know if anybody knows, but worked for me for a couple of seasons, and this is going to be his third. Wonderful communicator, great worker, and I'm really happy that you got this position.
Me too. Great. All right. Well, I'll see y'all later. We'll be in touch. Have a great
Thanks, y'all.
rest of your afternoon.
Thank
Bye.
you.